Friends, if you want to watch super hit movie Smile 2 in English, then you must like this video. If you're visiting our channel for the first time, don't forget to subscribe to our channel. Friends, in today's video, the movie we are going to talk about is called Smile 2. We will talk about what this movie is and where you can watch it. All the interesting about this movie in today's video. I am going to tell you. I am also going to give you all the information on which I request you friends to watch this video till the ends. So let's start the video. Smile 2 is a 2024 American psychological supernatural horror film written and directed by Parker Finn. A sequel to Smile 2022. The film stars Naomi Scott as a pop star who begins to experience a series of increasingly disturbing events as she is about to go on tour. It also features Rosemarie DeWitt, Lukas Gage, Miles Gutierrez-Riley, Peter Jacobson, Raul Castillo, Dylan Gelula, and Ray Nicholson, as well as Kyle Gallner reprising his role from the first film. In March 2023, following the commercial success of Smile, Finn signed a first-look deal with Paramount Pictures to develop additional horror projects. In the following April, a sequel to Smile had entered pre-production, with Finn returning as writer and director. Principal photography took place in early 2024 in New York. Smile 2 was released theatrically in the United States on October 18, 2024. The film received positive reviews from critics and grossed over $46 million worldwide. Plot: 6 days after witnessing Rose Cotter's suicide and having the Smile entity's curse passed on to him, police officer Joel attempts to pass it on by confronting two criminals, intending to make one of them his witness. After killing one, the intended witness dies in a shootout. However, drug dealer Louis Fregoli inadvertently witnesses the event and inherits the curse. Now free, Joel attempts to flee more approaching criminals but is bisected and killed by an oncoming pickup truck. In New York City, Grammy-winning pop star Sky Riley prepares for her comeback tour after a public struggle with substance abuse and a car crash that killed her boyfriend, actor Paul Hudson. Despite constant supervision from her mother and manager Elizabeth and assistant Joshua, Sky is secretly taking Vicodin for back pain. When she sneaks out to buy additional drugs from Louis, Sky witnesses him, in a manic state, smile and smash his own face in with a weight plate, killing himself. Traumatized, Sky flees, too afraid to call the police and reveal her presence. The curse soon manifests as Sky experiences physical and auditory hallucinations, including people eerily smiling at her, causing Sky's mental health to deteriorate rapidly. Desperate, she contacts her estranged best friend Gemma, and they reconcile. Sky then receives a text from an unknown number, warning her that they know she was at Louis' apartment and that she is in danger. At a charity event, initiated by music executive Darius, where Sky is invited to speak, the teleprompter stalls, later revealed as a hallucination, forcing her to give an embarrassing, impromptu speech. From the shocked audience, she sees a smiling Paul begin to approach her. In a panic, Sky lashes out, accidentally injuring an elderly patron on stage. Seeking answers, Sky meets the unknown texter, Morris, an ER nurse who has been tracking the entity responsible for his brother's death. He explains that the curse passes to anyone who witnesses the victim's death. Morris theorizes the entity is parasitic and can die without a host, and suggests stopping Sky's heart and then resuscitating her to break the curse, but she flees after being recognized. At her apartment, the entity attacks Sky in the form of her backup dancers, leaving Sky with a concussion. A flashback reveals she caused Paul's fatal crash by grabbing the wheel during a bitter, drug-fueled argument. Sky later wakes up at a wellness retreat, and after a bitter argument with her mother concerning the tour, watches in horror as Elizabeth smiles and stabs herself in the face. Sky then realizes she is covered in blood and was the one who stabbed her. Sky grabs a security guard's gun and escapes the wellness retreat. She reunites with Gemma, and together they carjack Sky's private driver to meet Morris for the resuscitation procedure. However, Sky gets a supposed first call back from the real Gemma, revealing the entity has been impersonating her, leaving Sky dazed and confused behind the wheel. Sky meets Morris at an abandoned Pizza Hut, where they plan to use the walk-in freezer to slow the process and prevent permanent brain damage. After Morris steps out, the entity, appearing as Sky's past self, attacks her. Desperate, Skye injects herself with the syringe, but the entity mocks her, revealing she is still hallucinating. The entity locks her in the closet and tells her to break a leg. Skye suddenly finds herself on stage at her tour's opening night at Madison Square Garden. A still alive Elizabeth, Joshua, and Darius watch happily from the audience, seemingly revealing the entirety of the past several days' events to have been another hallucination. Unseen by others, the entity appears as Skye before tearing its stomach open to reveal its true form. A large, skinless humanoid with multiple smiling mouths nestled into one another. The entity's visage causes Skye to enter a trance as the entity possesses her by breaking apart her mouth and crawling inside, whisked to the audience. She appears to choke and collapse. Smiling, the now possessed Skye stands up and, projected on the big screens, fatally stabs herself in the eye with her microphone in front of Elizabeth, Joshua, Darius, and thousands of horrified spectators. The scene shows Skye's lifeless corpse still smiling before the screen cuts to black. Cast Naomi Scott as Skye Riley, a famous pop music recording artist, Rosemarie DeWitt as Elizabeth Riley, Skye's mother and manager Lukas Gage as Louis Fregoli, a drug dealer and former classmate of Skye Miles Gutierrez Riley as Joshua, Elizabeth and Skye's assistant Peter Jacobson as Morris, a nurse Ray Nicholson as Paul Hudson, a deceased actor and Skye's former boyfriend Dylan Galula as Gemma. Skye's estranged best friend Raul Castillo as Darius, the head of Skye's record company Kyle Gallner as Joel, a police officer who previously was cursed by the Smile entity. Additionally, Drew Barrymore appears as herself, interviewing Skye on her talk show. Production Smile writer and director Parker Finn intentionally left portions of the first film ambiguous, with various plotlines unresolved, to create the opportunity to explore those details in a sequel. He noted that while additional installments may explore the backstory of the entity, he would like to keep its mysterious nature intact, adding that a follow-up film would be notably different from the first, as he believed there is still a lot of interesting stuff to explore in the world of Smile. I'd want to make sure that there's a new, exciting, fresh way into it that the audience isn't anticipating. In March 2023, following the commercial success of Smile, Finn signed a first-look deal with Paramount Pictures to develop additional horror projects. The following month at 2023 CinemaCon, Paramount announced that a sequel to Smile had been greenlit and was in pre-production, with Finn returning as writer and director. In December 2023, Naomi Scott was cast in a leading role, 9, which she stated was inspired by Lady Gaga in the early 2010s as well as Britney Spears. In early 2024, Lukas Gage, Rosemarie DeWitt, Dylan Galula, Raul Castillo, and Miles Gutierrez Riley joined the cast. Kyle Gallner reprised his role as Joel from the first film. In September 2024, it was revealed Drew Barrymore would appear as herself in the film. The casting of Ray Nicholson was an homage to his father Jack Nicholson's role in The Shining, 1980. Principal photography took place from January to March 2024 throughout Hudson Valley, New York, with primary locations in Newburgh, Poughkeepsie, Wappingers Falls, Albany, and New York City. Returning Smile crew members included cinematographer Charlie Saroff, editor Elliot Greenberg, and composer Cristobal Tapia de Veer. The film's budget was $28 million. Music? Smile 2, the Skye Riley EP, is a soundtrack extended play EP by English actress and singer Naomi Scott as her character Skye Riley. It was released through Interscope Records on October 11, 2024. Background: on June 8, 2024, the @Skye Riley Nation Instagram account began teasing a new era of a pop star named Skye Riley. On June 13, Bloody Disgusting spotted promotional billboards promoting the artist and her new music. On June 18, a song titled Blood on White Satin was released through Interscope Records and was featured in the first trailer of the film. The film was promoted with an audience member at the 2024 MTV Video Music Awards. The second single, Grieved You, was released on September 13. Release Smile 2 was released by Paramount Pictures on October 18, 2024. Reception box office. As of October 20, 2024, Smile 2 has grossed $23 million in the United States and Canada and $23 million in other territories for a worldwide total of $46 million. In the United States and Canada, Smile 2 was projected to gross $17 to $20 million from 3,619 theaters in its opening weekend. The film made $9.5 million on its first day, including an estimated $2.5 million in previews. The film went on to debut to $23 million, topping the original's $22.6 million debut and finishing first at the box office. Critical response. The film received positive reviews from critics, who said it was an improvement over the first film. On the review aggregator website Rotten Tomatoes, 85% of 146 critics' reviews are positive, with an average rating of 6.9/10. The website's consensus reads, "Blessed with a nerve-jangling star turn by Naomi Scott at his disposal, writer-director Parker Finn broadens Smile's conceit into a pop stardom nightmare that'll leave a rictus grin on horror fans' faces." Metacritic, which uses a weighted average, assigned the film a score of 66 out of 100, based on 36 critics, indicating generally favorable reviews. Audiences polled by CinemaScore gave the film an average grade of B on an A+ to F scale, up from the first film's B, while those surveyed by PostTrack gave it a 71% overall positive score, including an average of 3.5 out of 5 stars. Writing for Polygon, Austin Goslin gave a positive review for the film, deeming it superior to the first, while stating, rather than simply rehashing the original, Parker Finn pushes his clever premise to its logical extreme and builds some incredibly scary scenes to match. In fact, Finn ends Smile 2 in a spot that feels like the perfect conclusion to the franchise, and the perfect jumping-off point for the career of one of the most exciting horror directors of his generation. David Fear of Rolling Stone wrote, "There are long stretches where you actually forget you're watching a Smile movie, and couldn't be blamed for thinking you've stumbled into a slightly more nightmarish version of Beyond the Lights." Benjamin Lee of The Guardian gave the film 3 stars, writing, "I'm not sure if Smile 2 really adds much to an experience that we don't already know, but it does make for a neat, well-utilized setting for a horror film about losing one's mind." Variety's Owen Gleiberman said, "The movie is hardly subtle, yet Parker Finn has become a clever enough filmmaker to make reality feel like a hallucination, and hallucinations feel like reality." Bill Jabiri of Vulture was more critical, writing, "As Skye becomes increasingly unable to tell what's actually happening and what's a waking nightmare, we should feel more for her, and we should feel more with her. Instead, we lose interest, as the whole thing becomes pointless, and even a little cynical and cruel. The movie ultimately scuttles its own ambitions." Enemies, James Mottram said, "Sadly, Smile 2 doesn't feel as fresh as its predecessor, partly because it borrows liberally from films like Flatliners and tries to outgore the substance for all the bloody prosthetics. In essence, this is just a rerun of the first movie, just in a slightly glitzier environment. There's been a habit this year of sequels that have been accused of being little more than rinse and repeat of their predecessor in films like Inside Out 2 and Terrifier 3. Bet that's the first time art and joy have been compared. You're welcome. One of several things that works about Parker Finn's Smile 2 is that it feels like an effort to expand on the ideas of the hit first movie instead of just repeating them. Whereas that film joined a subgenre of horror flicks that use mental illness as a supernatural force, Finn pivots to include things like self-hatred, addiction, and even the commodification of pop stars in his sharp follow-up. One thing it definitely has in common is a stellar central performance. Sosie Bacon was the MVP of the first Smile, and Naomi Scott is just phenomenal in the superior follow-up, put through the emotional and physical ringer for 2 hours for your entertainment. Kinda like a pop star. Much like its most obvious inspiration, It Follows, Smile 2 once again explores the idea of a person being haunted instead of a place. Finn's film opens with the fate of a character from the first film, Kyle Gallner's Joel, who has to pass along his curse to someone else and has chosen a drug dealer to be the victim in a well-shot scene of violent chaos. An unplanned visitor named Lukas Gage, ends up witnessing the carnage, becoming the one afflicted with what can only be called a parasite, something that feeds on your insecurity and trauma to present you with increasingly terrifying visions, often of people you know and love. doing absolutely horrible things with a smile on their face. It's not long before Lewis smashes his face to bloody bits with a heavy weight in front of troubled pop star Sky Riley, Naomi Scott, who is planning a comeback after a year of recovery from a car accident that killed her boyfriend Paul. In flashbacks and hauntings, Paul is played by none other than Ray Nicholson, who got the head-down malevolent smile thing that his dad Jack made so famous, and that reportedly inspired this flick. You know the look. Sky has put her addiction and grief behind her, but the smile creature uses all of her insecurities and weaknesses against her to drive her slowly insane. Her mother, manager Elizabeth, Rosemarie DeWitt, assistant Josh, Miles Gutierrez Riley, and record company head Darius, Roel Castillo, are ready for Sky's comeback, but her increasingly fragile mental state makes that impossible. Sky tries to reunite with an old friend named Gemma, Dylan Jalula, someone who she thinks she can trust. But Smile 2 isn't just about a haunting, it's about cruelty. It's about being pushed to the mental edge in ways that are physically and emotionally unimaginable. Whether it's thinking she sees a homicidal, naked fan is in her apartment, or a vision of the dead Paul in the audience at a fundraising event, Sky is watching reality fracture in front of her eyes. It's a hell of a demanding part for an actress, and Scott is legitimately great, selling the horror and fear that has overtaken Sky's life. Finn asks a lot of his lead performer, putting her through physical and emotional gauntlets, and it matters a great deal that Scott commits to every single beat. We believe what's happening around her because we believe her horrified reaction to it. The excellent sound design is close, but she's really the key to this film's success. To be fair, Smile 2 does lose control of some of its many thematic threads, particularly the ones about how fans feel like they own pop stars and how so many of them are asked to bury their trauma and just smile. But enough remain in the foundation of the piece to get it across the finish line. On that note, there's no reason for a horror sequel to be over 2 hours long, but it's more because Finn has so many avenues that he wants to explore with his concept than a sense of narrative bloat or sag or padding. I was never bored, and there are some truly stellar sequences here, especially one that could be called Smile Dancers, that's one of the best in concept and execution in the genre this year. I have a general aversion to films that use mental illness as a cheap horror device. Hated Lights Out, for example. And so what impresses me most about these films is how Finn avoids those exploitative traps by focusing so intently on the emotional truth of his heroines. Yes, there are a few too many jump scares and at least one too many twists, but it's all forgivable when you think of the true terror in Naomi Scott's eyes. Finn loves faces, the ones twisted by evil and the ones shattered by fright. Even more than after the first film, I'm interested to see what he does next, and more confident that it won't just be more of the same. A skillfully disquieting sequel turns the life of a pop star into a horror ride of mental breakdown. Naomi Scott's performance as a pop star diva grappling with demons, including her own, gives Parker Finn's sequel a genuine emotional center. Portraying the life of a diva pop star, or, at least, doing it convincingly, isn't the easiest thing for a movie to bring off. There are too many real-life counterparts. The director Brady Corbett, the brutalist, teaming up with Natalie Portman, got about halfway there in Vox Lux. Lady Gaga, drawing on elements of her own legend, but shrewd enough to play the heroine of A Star is Born, as not a version of herself, created a character for the ages. More recently, M. Night Shyamalan seemed to make Trap, mostly to let his budding musician daughter, Suleika Shyamalan, embody a pop singer, which she did with aplomb in concert, less convincingly in the backstage scenes. So when you hear that Smile 2, Parker Finn's sequel to his effective if overloaded creep-out horror film of 2 years ago, is centered around a pop star, you may not exactly be expecting a deep-dish immersion in the pop music universe. The first Smile, after all, was a movie in which people were possessed by a weird demon, which caused them to have a breakdown over the course of a week, at which point they would flash an insidious nightmare smile at someone else and proceed to commit suicide directly in front of them, at which point the demon passed into the body of the one who witnessed the suicide. Complicated. Or maybe just convoluted. The premise of Smile all made sense, with the host-hopping demon, a descendant of the ones from It Follows, and going back to the 80s, The Hidden. Yet the movie, vividly staged as it was, often just seemed a glorified vehicle for all those self-mutilating deaths and frozen rictus grins. Smile 2 is different. It's got all that stuff, but it's a horror film that strives to create a genuine emotional center. And that's because it really, truly is about a pop star, a dance queen idol named Sky Riley, played with yes she really could be one authenticity by the British actor and singer Naomi Scott, who from the start is fending off demons that are all too human. A year before, high on drugs, Sky was seriously injured in a car crash that killed her movie star boyfriend. Since then, she's been in recovery, in every sense, and she's about to launch a comeback tour. We see her reintroduce herself to her audience with an appearance on Drew, with Drew Barrymore playing herself, where she shows off her new Edie Sedgwick hairdo along with her practiced air of chastised arrogance. The film sticks close to Sky's point of view and takes us through her life. The rehearsals and costume changes, the compulsive guzzling of designer bottles of Voss water, her bickering relationship with her doting but parasitic manager mother, Rosemarie DeWitt, her increasingly severe case of the hair-tearing impulse trichotillomania, and her parade of fans lining up for their turn to pose with her in badass selfies. Almost every scene of Smile 2 is infused with the awareness that to be a pop star in the 21st century is to conduct oneself like an industry, a never-ending exercise in corporate image management. At times, when you look at someone like Ariana Grande or Olivia Rodrigo, it's not hard to see the vulnerable human behind the cultivated star facade. Naomi Scott in Smile 2 shows you both. Since Sky is grappling with a demon that has invaded her, plus the memories of that nightmare car accident, not to mention all the destruction her selfishness has caused. This demon likes to have some built-in mental torment to work with. Her life and career begin to come apart. But to everyone around her who can't see the demon, it just looks like she's cracking up. And in a way, maybe she is. Smile 2 is a flash-cut horror parable, but the story it's telling is that pop fame makes you crazy. The movie is hardly subtle, yet Parker Finn has become a clever enough filmmaker to make reality feel like a hallucination and hallucinations feel like reality. The smile, as before, can come from almost anywhere, like the tween girl embraces in the fan queue, but it often comes from someone who is close to Sky, and that can be as disquieting as a jump scare. The horror kicks off when she goes to visit Lukas Gage, an old high school chum who's now a high-end drug dealer. Flying on cocaine, he's become a jabbering headcase who proceeds to kill himself by bashing his face with a circular 35-pound workout weight. All very garish. But then Sky gets in touch with Gemma, Dylan Jalula, the unpretentious bestie she blew off when she was at the height of her drug frenzy. Their reunion in Sky's apartment draws us in, and so we're hardly expecting Gemma to flash the smile. One of the film's shuddery highlights is when Sky gets visited by her backup dancers in a sequence that would make Bob Fosse smile from his grave. Asked to be a presenter at a children's benefit, Sky has to read a canned speech off a teleprompter, which turns into a literal bad dream, which prompts her to go over the edge. The scene climaxes with her late boyfriend walking up to the stage flashing the smile. That Ray Nicholson is the actor's son of Jack Nicholson makes him genetically predisposed to do this well. When she lashes out at this mirage by shoving the very wrong person off stage, it's a moment of the purest funny cringe. The best thing about Smile 2 is that it keeps the audience off balance, starting with how Cristobal Tapia de Vere's unsettling electronic score works on us. Sky's story is riddled with trapdoors that keep opening into her repressed reality, and Naomi Scott plays this with great skill. She's not just a horror movie whipping girl. We develop a sympathetic understanding of Sky and her predicament, which is that she's surrounded by handlers, but feels more and more alone. By the time she goes to a bar to meet Morris, Peter Jacobson, who has a plan to defeat the demon, she just has to agree to let her heart be stopped for 2 minutes. A sudden onslaught of fans who want to bond with her on TikTok seems as much of a nightmare as anything in the movie. Yet by the time Skye finds herself in the freezer of an abandoned Pizza Hut to follow through on Morris's plan, the film has become too fractious and extended for its own good. The ending is destined to leave the audience scratching its collective head, and that's because Parker Finn, now in love with the smile mythology he created, gets grandiose about it. The film climaxes with a body horror maximalism coupled with a minimum of logic. Until then, though, it wrings honest jolts out of the unnerving hothouse of unreality that is pop stardom. Creepy and gross. This movie leads you into a false sense of security on the type of horror you're watching. There's a lack of jump scares for the first 40 minutes or so, which makes you feel safe in your seat, till the movie starts to build and it's happening all the time. Smile 2 is a creepy horror which has a lot of scenes which make you feel uncomfortable. It's very physiological horror, which plays tricks on your mind, but also has a lot of elements that make you sick to your stomach. Naomi Scott is terrifyingly good. Naomi Scott blew me away. I didn't even recognize her at first. She really did morph into her character of a well-known pop star, and I totally believed her level of fame and talent. Naomi Scott herself is incredibly talented, and this movie should be a career-defining moment for her. She not only nails the terrified elements, but also the physiological too. I generally believed her character's mental health distress. She's a triple threat, and I can't wait to see more from her after this. Also, how does she drink all that water so fast? It lingers. Unlike a lot of horrors which tend to try to scare you and move on to the next build-up for a jump scare, this movie stretched out those moments of scaring the audience. Yes, it has the build-up, but normally after the initial scare, the main character would be running for the hills, or the camera would cut away. Not in this movie. Those moments are perfectly drawn out, which makes you even more uncomfortable. Even now after the movie, I'm still thinking about some of those scenes. Predictable ending. The ending is exactly as I predicted after seeing the trailer for this movie. There was only one way this could go, and unfortunately that left me disappointed, but left it open for another sequel. However, I was very surprised by the opening of the movie, which was cleverly done, and I didn't see coming. Where the ending lacks, the majority of the movie will keep you on your toes. Is this a new type of horror aimed at Gen Z? Is this it now? Is this the new genre of horror? I've seen a shift in the horror genre, which feels like it's trying to appeal to our new generation of teenagers and young adults. Yes, times are changing and the audience is growing up, so you have to appeal to them. But is this it now? Are we just going to have horrors based on social media, AI, and famous people? Saying this, I am very much on board for this new cycle of physiological horror and mental health aspects. As long as it's new and refreshing, I'm on board, but there's only so many remakes a girl can take. Seldom do I leave a horror film as frayed and shaken as I did Smile 2. The follow-on to the hit 2022 film, it's clear that the filmmaker, Finn, has no desire to let up on the bleakness of Smile. Instead, twisting the knife further into our ribs and pulling the rug out from under us so we brutalize our faces on the floor of his narrative. It's polished, but mean, as the story's darkness and nerve-jangling scares seek to pop the top off of our skulls and wreak havoc on the deeper levels of our subconscious. And because of that, Finn is welcome to catch these hands at any time he chooses. After the horrors of Smile, we pick up mere weeks later, where, after an explosive and inventive opening, the grimacing parasitic entity has found a new host in pop superstar Skye Riley, Naomi Scott. A former addict who's about to return to the spotlight a year after a deadly car crash, she witnesses her former classmate, Lukas Gage, pulverize his own face with a free weight, which transfers the demon over to Riley. It's not long before she begins to experience escalating, nightmarish visions that seek to upend what's left of her sanity. If it ain't broke, don't fix it, seems to be the motto for Finn et al. Going into this next installment. Yes, the budget's bigger, the visuals are grander, and the story is technically more expansive, but the beats remain the same. As both writer and director, Finn has much more interest in the individual being tormented than the tormentor. A longer runtime might be considered bloated by some standards. Yes, there could indeed be some trimming, but it gives the filmmaker more time to delve into what makes Riley tick and really take the time in ramping up the scares and tension to an almost unyielding level. It's clear from the jump that Finn has no real interest in delving into or even developing the lore of the entity any further. And it's an admirable decision. Too often, the understanding of the creepy thing under the bed can sand down its teeth. If one can understand its origin, the better chance to vanquish it. What makes the entity more terrifying is not only the demonic torment it relishes in, but it's not knowing what it actually is. And that is the creature's biggest strength. In past interviews, Finn has stated that the previous film's character, Rose, Sosie Bacon, feels part of some cosmic joke, inexplicable chaos that the universe seeks to dump on our protagonists. As the entity says to Riley, "You're not in control." And that may be the most terrifying thing of all. As far as Scream Queens go, Naomi Scott has very much entered the pantheon of the greats. As Riley, she is spinning so many plates, both physically and emotionally, that one has to wonder just how exhausting this role was for her. Scene after scene has her being pushed further and further to the edge, and it's obvious that Scott is giving this demented and vicious tale everything she's got. It almost feels like an audition for Finn's adaptation of Possession, and he'd be mad not to give the actress a fair shake at the role. I came out of the film angry and dejected. Not because the film is bad, far from it. It's a masterclass in effective jump scares and tension building. Finn deftly understands how to use the camera in a way that sets your teeth on edge, knocking the viewer off balance, and rarely do you feel at ease. But there is a bleakness to his story, a mean viciousness that left me shuffling out of the cinema, deflated. And that's probably Finn's greatest trick. This is easily one of the best horror films of the year, but for a film called Smile, it made me do anything but. Distributed by Paramount Pictures, release date October 18, 2024, running time 127 minutes, country United States, language English, budget $28 million. Box office $2.5 million. So guys, this is the review of Smile 2 movie and some information about it. How do you like our today's video? Please let us know by commenting, and if you like this video, please like it, share it, and don't forget to subscribe to our channel. Thanks for watching.